So today's coffee conversation topic is all about spirit teams. What the heck does that mean? What do they look like? How can you contact them? How can you develop relationships with them? All of that fun, juicy stuff. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening along with us. Make sure you have your coffee, your tea, your beautiful drinks, your kombucha, whatever it may be, and sip along as we have this conversation. And I'm joined with Izzy. So welcome back to our coffee conversations.
Yes. Hello, hello. So excited for this one. This is something that I think we've been brewing behind the scenes for a really long time. And I think it's so interesting because everybody's probably heard about your spirit guides and your power animals and your guardian angels. But as soon as you say spirit team, people are like, huh? There's like this, what's that? Like everybody wants to know, everybody wants to be connected, but there's almost this like veil of mystery around it. So I'm really excited to kind of pull that back today and hopefully introduce some people to the members of their spirit team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, where to start? Let's just start with the basics. Like, what is a spirit guide? What is a power animal? What makes up a full spirit team? Because there are so many different types of guides. And so it's to not constrict to like, it has to look like a guardian angel and it has to look like this. I think the biggest thing when it comes to your spirit team is to be open and flexible with how they show up. Because it might not look like what your logical mind thinks it should be. And it might not come to like a guardian angel might not look like what we've seen in Hollywood cartoons or whatever, right? Like they don't necessarily look like that. They look like how it needs to show up for you so you are most comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we have a primary spirit guide, and that can be a guardian angel. And then we have a primary power animal. And so we have these two that have been with us since birth, and they both have very specific reasons to be with us. So our power animals, they say in the shamanic studies that the power animal comes when a baby first cries, because the power animals, the animal species is the strongest of the species because when they're born, they're not weak like human babies are. And so the cry calls out to the spirit world for the power animal to come to help give it strength and protect it. Okay, so that's like what's underneath of like, when do these power animals show up? The reason why we go through childhood having our beautiful stuffed animals and like love to play with all of our little animal figurines is because our power animals are with us. And some of us, it's known right away what our power animals is. Like when my daughter, it was very clear that she had a bunny as her power animal when she was a child. And it was so funny because throughout her whole like preschool type experience, like her Waldorf teacher would make her a crown, and what was on it? A little brown rabbit. And then she would get like gifts. Everything had little bunnies on them. And so it was really funny. Like they just showed up all around her all the time. And she still calls to the bunny, but now the bunny like lives in the moon because that's in Eastern philosophy. The bunny lives in the moon. And so if you look at the moon, instead of seeing the face in the moon, there's a bunny in the moon, and from Eastern philosophy. So she's like, well, the bunny's hanging out with the moon right now. I'm like, the bunny can still come and tuck you into bed. Like, so we have these conversations around our power animals and growing up, and they feel more tangible because they can imagine what animals and power animals look like, versus when we say call upon our spirit guides or guardian angels, kids are like, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Right?
Yeah. I think for me, I love kind of looking at that difference between power animals and spirit guides too, especially from a kid's perspective, because when I think about power animals, a lot of times what comes up for me is kind of like you said, it's a denser, more tangible energy. They're very much here, I feel, for protection and safety and support. They're like your pillars of support, that foundation of your spirit team. And so they're really there to lift you up, to bring you the gifts or knowledge or support or whatever it is that you need at that base level. Like if you're in the chakras, they're very much that root chakra energy.
Mhm.
And so they are with us from birth, and they do have that affinity for us from our first cry. And then of course we have our primary, who is that first cry. He comes in, he or she, they, insert word here. But then you also have your supportings that come along at different phases of your life and help you with different things that you need at the time, whether that's emotional support or a feeling of safety, or you need to feel like you have personal power, whatever it is for you. These different animals kind of fluctuate because, of course, our energy is going to fluctuate. But when you look at it from a child's perspective, they're very much, children are wide open to the spirit realm. They have that connection, they have this awareness. But to be able to put that awareness into an actual figure or a tangible image, it's a lot easier for them to see things that are familiar, like animals. And because children are so open and they have such purity in their subconscious mind when they're so young, they automatically have an affinity for animals, whether that's spiritual animals or animals in the 3D reality. Like you see those really cute YouTube videos of babies all curled up with kittens and things like this, because there's just this natural affinity there. And so for kids, it's easy to kind of connect with their power animal and lean on them for support, for comfort, for safety, all of these things. Whereas your spirit guides, I feel, are there more for gathering information and wisdom and that like higher insight. So it's very much like power animals are in that root chakra, denser, more foundational energy. And your spirit guides are more in that crown chakra, bigger picture, higher wisdom, energetically, divinely connected, big picture, wouldn't you say?
Yes, 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 yes. Like I feel like power animals are there for power and protection and like strength, and that's really their source of energy. Whereas our spirit guides, our primary spirit guide or guardian angel, that really, I feel like their sole purpose is to hold you accountable to your soul agreement. And your soul agreement didn't have all these fun and joyful, exciting things on it. Typically, usually it's like lessons to be learned. And oftentimes those lessons aren't easy ones. So I remember having a client, and this is when I really discovered this information. I was talking to a guardian angel. Had a client, and he had come in numerous times, and he was an amputee. He lost his arm in I think it was like a manufacturing warehouse type accident. And and it had led to a life of then bullying, and then addiction and alcoholism. And that led him on that path after the accident, and really had some issues around his relationships with women. And so during one of our sessions, so here I am, I'm doing Reiki, and this guide shows up, and I'm like, what wisdom do you have to tell me? And he was like, well, I want to explain what, as the guardian angel, my hardest job is. I pushed him into the machinery that took his arm because it was part of his soul contract. And then it was my job to make him survive. And so as the guardian angel, he's like, our jobs are very difficult because we have to push you in the circumstance that will hold you to your soul agreements, and then make sure that you survive throughout the lesson so that you learn it. Yeah. Right. So this isn't like easy stuff. And I think when most people think about guardian angels, they're like, the person who's going to protect me from all the drama in my life. And I'm like, no, they actually brought you to it. They brought you to the thing that you needed to learn, and they will give it to you over and over and over again until you learn it, because that's their job, is to make sure you learn the lessons of your soul agreement. And so that's like Izzy said, it's very crown chakra, big point of view. Learning your soul lessons is our job of our primary spirit guide or guardian angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people hear that and they're like, but they're angels. They're supposed to only do, good things. They're supposed to be supportive. And again, it comes back to, especially, this is something we learn as Reiki practitioners, is that sometimes good isn't what our mind categorizes as good. There's not that kind of black and white duality in the spiritual realm. Sometimes that learning has to happen. And unfortunately, sometimes that has to happen with pain or wounding or trauma, because that's how we grow and we become opened. There's that Eastern philosophy, like we were talking about earlier, of, the cracks are where the light shines in. And that's kind of the idea behind guardian angels as well, is they know you, they know your soul, they know your energy, and they know why you decided to come to this planet at this time in this body in this human form. And they're here to keep you on that track, because even when we have that kind of spiritual amnesia that comes with being in the human condition, we have already at a soul level had this understanding of the general overarching idea of what our life is going to bring us. And so our guardian angels, our spirit guides, are there to help facilitate that journey. They're not here, that guardian angel didn't push him into the machinery out of spite or out of an unnecessary action. It was something that needed to unfold. And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to wrap our minds around, is this idea that even when guardian angels are acting for our greatest and highest good, it can result in what to our mind seems like pain or trauma or harm, because in the long run, it helps us grow. It breaks us open so that light and that energy and that expansion can come in. And so spirit guides and guardian angels are, I think, really interesting, because depending on who yours is and how they connect, you can have some pretty snippy guardians, I want to say. Like, I know my primary power guide is very blunt and very direct and very matter of fact, and it's not because she's rude or inconsiderate or anything like that, but it's because that she knows that in order to get through to me, in order for the messages to be received fully, she has to have that matter of fact, very blunt nature. And so sometimes you'll hear our students especially will come back from a journey, if they're in one of our journey courses, and they'll be like, my guide said this, or my guardian angel did this. And it's like, no, that's because they know you better than you know you, and they're able to kind of reach you in the way that you need to be reached. So they have this, I want to say, like a tough love kind of persona. And that doesn't mean that they're always going to have that kind of abrasive appearance. They do have those moments of love and light and support. But at the end of the day, their ultimate mission and their ultimate purpose is to help guide you down that path, and is to help you remember the truth of who you are and why you're here. And that's not necessarily always pretty.
And, I also find that oftentimes the personality of your guides that show up, they're reflective of something that you need to work on. So when I first met my guide, he was a freaking comedian. He was so funny, because I grew up Catholic, and Catholic and spirituality meant that you needed to be stoic, that you needed to, endure and therefore become, religiously spiritual and all of these things. And so it was very like, how many hours can you suffer through to have this enlightenment? Like, that's Catholicism in a nutshell when it comes to like their perception of things. And so my spirit guide showed up when I first met him. He was hilarious. He was a complete jokester. He would play tricks on me, and it was all to make me laugh. His job and purpose, and to help me break out of this conditioned belief that to be spiritual, you had to be stoic and like suffer. And so as soon as he brought me to classes like, I remember maybe it was like 15 years ago, maybe it was even longer ago than that. I felt really guided to take this Kunlun class. Has anyone ever heard of Kunlun? Like, I don't even know. I've never even heard of it since. But basically, it was a meditation class where you held your hands in these different mantras in front of your heart chakra, and you lifted your heels up off of the floor, so only that your toes would touch. And it would bring up all of these emotions. And so people would be, and you would do it in a circle, and your eyes would be closed. And then all of a sudden, the whole room would be hysterically laughing. And then 5 minutes later, everyone is sobbing and crying. And then, like, you would just roll through these giant, big emotions. And I felt like that class, like my spirit guardian angel, he really brought me to this experience, because it was like, look, it can look any way it's supposed to. Like, emotions are emotions, just feel them. Like, laugh if you want to laugh, let it go. Like, don't be so rigid. And it was phenomenal. And so the person who taught the class became a good friend. And I was like, I learned that to be spiritual, you don't have to be religious or stoic. And that was a huge life lesson for me. So it doesn't have to look like it is all about what is according to your soul agreement that they're going to work on. So my soul agreement was to break out of that so I could do this now, right? Like I couldn't do this work that I do now if I didn't believe that fun and play could be spiritual, right? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my big aha moment. Fun and play can also be spiritual.
Yeah. And I think too, what something I kind of want to put in here is, for me at least, I think there is a bit of a difference between your spirit guide and your guardian angel. And I don't know if that's kind of universal, but I know that in my own practice and with some of our students, there's, for me, what I really think of is your primary guide is really that one who's there to offer you insight and wisdom and kind of guide you through with I don't want to say hints, but they're more knowledge and cognitive based. There to give you that wisdom and understanding to kind of guide your path. Whereas guardian angels are a little bit more, are, let's get you going, let's pull you to safety, let's have you be doing something that's going to support your journey. And so for me, that spirit guide is a little more thought based and a little more on the wisdom side of giving you insights in where your path is going and where you need to go in order to fulfill why you came here. Whereas guardian angels are a little bit more, let's move you, let's make you do something, let's show you things. They're a little more physical. And so I think for me, guardian our spirit guides are very much that like crown chakra, very airy, divine light energy. And then your power animals, like we talked about earlier, are that root chakra, denser energy. And for me, those guardian angels kind of sit somewhere in the middle. They're like the bridge between the two, of they have that physicality and that movement and sometimes symbolism orientation like a power animal, but they also have that divine connection and mission to keep you going on your soul path like a spirit guide. So they're kind of that midway.